Hello, hello, and welcome. We're waiting for some people to trickle in. I'm so excited today because I am with my awesome coach, Trey Stinnett, and his beautiful wife is also here, Grace Stinnett, and my awesome Chief Connection Officer, Leslie, is also here. And today we're going to be talking about the 8 paths to wealth and specifically the Wealth Lighthouse, which really revolutionized my business because I was at that place where, I had a lot of ideas, tons of ideas, and I wanted to do them all at the same time. And that was kind of a problem because first of all, my team couldn't catch up to me. And second of all, I spent a lot of money in the past, specifically $20,000 to publish a book at a time where probably wasn't a good idea to do. And then when I learned from Trey, the Wealth Lighthouse, and where I'm at in the Wealth Lighthouse and the action steps or the, planning steps that I should have been doing at that stage, it was like, oh, no wonder I didn't make any money. So that's why I was really excited now that I'm, a little bit, more proficient at understanding these geniuses and understanding my profile in the Wealth Lighthouse. I really wanted to share this amazing information with you guys, so you can have a little bit of Trey, and then if it resonates with you, the work that we're going to do today. And of course, you can ask questions and things like that. Then near the end, we're going to actually invite you to do the full Flow Accelerator workshop, which I got a ton out of and highly recommend, especially for those people who are at that place where they really don't know where to go next, what to do, because why spin your wheels doing what you think is a good idea when it actually is not the right thing to do? So doing the right thing at the wrong time, not so helpful. But doing the right thing at the right time, very helpful. And so now I can see my future in terms of the business, where I'm at, what I'm going to be doing. And you know what's really great is that underlying anxiety that I didn't even know I had because I wasn't sure what I was going to do in the future, like scratching my head, like, do I do this next or do I do this next? Now it's sort of like, oh, it's clear. Okay, well, there's still work to do, but I just know, what to do next. So that's been super helpful. So Trey, let me introduce you a little bit. Trey is the North American trainer and coach for the Wealth Dynamic System that was created by Roger Hamilton. And I'll let him explain a little bit about, how he got started and also what happened during COVID, because that is relevant to our discussion today. And then Grace, and Leslie, you can pop in and say hi as well afterwards. So Trey, welcome. And thank you for being here.
Awesome. Thank you, Karen. It's good to see you as usual and to be back on talking to your community. It's been, I think, a year since we did the podcast last time, where we were really focused on the 8 different types of entrepreneurs and their different paths to wealth. And that was revolutionary for me when I first discovered those 8 types. But when COVID happened and my entire life got flipped upside down, we had an events business. We'd finally gotten up to like 6-figure months, which was the goal.
Wow.
But it was an events business. And so immediately when I saw the news that the NBA got shut down, I'll never forget, I was standing at a marina in San Diego for a big event. And I saw the NBA is actually shutting down. South by Southwest in Austin, where I lived at the time, was shutting down. I was like, oh my God, my business is toast. Like, all of our events for the year are gone. What are we going to do? And it's actually the map that I'll be going over today and showing everyone that helped us figure out exactly what to do. And this wasn't the first time in my life that I'd had a business interruption, right? So I had lost everything in 2008. My dad owned an auto shop, and Cash for Clunkers plus some road construction shut down that business. So I had the traumatic experience of losing a business before, but this was the first time I had a map that could help me get back into flow. And I was able to use exactly what we'll be talking about today to be able to do that. And in just a few short months, we were able to pivot the business into a virtual business. And within a year, we were doing more than we were doing before. So it was like, okay, I know this stuff works, and it's not just us, right? We've helped you with it. We've helped all of our clients with it. And so this really creates a feeling of ease and clarity, knowing, oh, that's what I need to do next, rather than so much of the frenetic, just stabbing in the dark, scrambling and trying to figure stuff out.
Yeah, that is great. Well, and that's a wonderful testimonial of how the system really works and how you knew what to do. And you guys got back on your feet. Grace, how did you, first of all, you can say hi, and how did you handle it from your end? I mean, your partners with Trey. So
it was, I mean, I'm sure I'm not different than most people. It was really scary. But again, Trey will talk a lot about the map, the Wealth Lighthouse, right? There's a few different words for it, but being able to go back to a framework that really underlies everything, and like from there make decisions again, and instead of guessing. And we just kept checking, okay, what level are we at? What are the steps? Okay, and then like just within a few months, we moved up another level again, which Trey will explain all the levels, and just having the clarity and checking back on a system that was developed from something that's thousands of years old. There's a lot of, it's a lot more than just hope, right? And just following your intuition. You want to follow your intuition and also, pull in these other external directions.
Oh, that's great. Well, and I guess the kids probably didn't miss a beat, right? Didn't bother them at all.
We protected them from 95% of it. We took walks every day. Yeah, Cozy learned how to read during COVID. So yeah, we were.
Yeah, I was gonna say, if anything, their lives improved from the whole thing. Not to mention, I don't have to leave anymore. Like, we do everything virtually, and so I get to see the kids. If I leave, it's because we want to, not because we have to, right? And that was kind of the case before, but now it really is. And so it really gives you the ability to have that lifestyle. Actually, I got the chat pulled up so I can see who's here. I'd love to know, is anybody on here self-employed? Anybody already have a business? And you can just throw in the chat if you do. I just kind of like to see where everybody's coming in. I see people are coming in from California and all over the place, Hawaii. So just put yes, or I got a biz, or self-employed down in there. I'd love to kind of just get an idea. Anyway, back to you, Karen.
Yeah, thank you. And thank you, Grace, for that. And Leslie, if you want to come say hi.
Yeah, I'd love to say hi. These are some of my favorite people here, Grace and Trey and Karen. So before meeting the Wealth Dynamic duo, I did the working hard thing. So I've always had a business and a job, and I've always done both. And my business would get to a point where it was okay. I had just enough, but it wasn't enough to truly leave my hospital job. And finally, I saw a way that's not just the work hard. So I'm excited for everyone to get to learn from you guys. And it's been an awesome experience for me. So thank you.
This is great. And also I have to say that, Leslie's, part of my team now. And, just knowing the, 8 paths to wellness, wellness, I say wellness all the time, right? Wealth and, the different geniuses, and knew what Leslie was good at and what I was good at, what I wasn't good at. It was, really a beautiful match to be able to say, hey, Leslie, can you help us out? And basically created a job, if you will. It's just been fantastic. And I'm just so pleased. And that's one of the main things that lately that I've gotten out of the whole Wealth Dynamics and this whole Wealth Lighthouse is, on that stage, knowing that, team is really important now. I need team now. And so I can see where the gaps are and things like that. And we're building towards, getting that full team. But it's made such a huge difference. I can spend more time doing what I love to do, which is to create and teach and post and stuff like that, and talk and be on video, and less time, doing kind of button pushing and scheduling and things that I'm not so good at, because I tend to overbook myself sometimes and went, oops. And luckily for me, I got Leslie and Tasha as a tempo. They're like, excuse me, but you can't do that in your schedule. So, it's been great. By the way, guys, I just put up a poll. If you're here live, you can put in the poll there. The number one question is, what is your number one frustration when it comes to your career or business? 33% so far said finding the right job or business that I love. So that's a huge percentage. That's like, of course, you could put in as many as you want if you have multiple number one frustrations. 15% finding the right people, coworkers, team members. 22% finding the right clients. 17% how to go from a job to being a successful entrepreneur. 29% marketing my business. I would have said that was one of my major frustrations in the past. 21% doing stuff I don't like doing and not enough time spending, doing the stuff I like to do. And 28% said managing my business. So there's that. And then as far as the 8 paths to your genius, if you know your wealth dynamics profile, you can put it here. Most people, 53% don't know yet, but there's an opportunity near the end of this where we talk about how you can get to know that, as well as do some more work if you'd like. Some accumulators, lords, mechanics, no supporters, deal makers, or traders, aside from Grace, who we know is a supporter, and Leslie, who is a trader, and Star. And wow, look at that, 28% creators. What is that about? That's interesting.
Well, maybe like attracts like. Both Karen and I are what's called a creator profile in Wealth Dynamics, which is a certain type. It's the Richard Branson, Elon Musk, Steve Jobs type. Tends to be the most famous entrepreneur, but not necessarily the wealthiest, most successful. And emulating and modeling the wrong people is a recipe for burnout and frustration and jealousy. So we're going to get into both who to model and when to model them in this conversation, because that is both of those things hugely important. The biggest thing for us here at ACE is alignment, right? Is your business aligned to who you are, to where you are, to when you are, right? And if it is aligned to all of that, then it really should be something that you love doing, right? And so we'll get into all that as we kind of go through the Lighthouse, and maybe touch a little bit on Wealth Dynamics too, since there's so many people here who haven't yet taken the test.
Okay, well, I'll let you take it away, Trey, and lead us as to, this beautiful model that we have.
Yeah, you got it. So as with all things, this starts with a story. I grew up in Houston, Texas. My dad owned an automotive shop, which meant that unlike many people who grew up around parents who had jobs, I grew up around a business owner. And you would think, oh, well, you must have learned all the right things to do because you grew up around a business owner. Maybe my dad gave me some good perspectives on money, but what I learned more than anything was what it was like to not have my dad's time when I wanted it, and what it was like to see him stressed out all of the time because he didn't have stress management. He was working all of the time inside of his business. And so as I got older, I decided there's no way I'm going to be a business owner. I'm going to go a different direction. I'm going to go to college. I'm going to go in the Marine Corps. I'm going to go in politics. I'm going to find something, but I'm not going to be the business owner. So it's amazing to me that here I am now as a business owner. This is probably the 11th business that we have run. I'll have to go back and count. We've been in 8 different industries, and not because I keep building and selling companies, but because I was trying to find what was right for me. I was trying to find the thing that fit, the thing that felt right, the thing that could give me the lifestyle. And by lifestyle, I mean the money to buy what I want, go where I want, do what I want, but also the time to be with my kids, the time to love the life that I live. And I found myself in my early 30s making the money, traveling around the world, speaking on big stages for people like Tony Robbins and Damon John. And it was glamorous on the outside, but on the inside, I was kind of dying because I was away from my kids 40 plus times per year. And I needed to find something different. And when I just happened to stumble upon the Wealth Dynamics system, what is how Karen and I met, it completely revolutionized my life because I could see for the first time, oh my gosh, there's more than one path to wealth, but more importantly, there's only 8, which means I can take a look at these and I'm starting to like cross them off. I'm like, tried that one, tried that one, tried that one. And the one that I had tried the least was my primary profile. And it turned out that I tried that the least because that's what I'm the most naturally good at, read easiest. And we live in a world where they tell you that the easy path is not the right path. It's got to be hard work, hustle and grind. And so when I started actually leaning into being a creator, everything began to change for me. I learned how to build businesses and focus on strategy and stay in the idea seat while bringing the right people around me that could focus in their zone of genius in the areas that are actually my zone of incompetence. Right. So the fact that there's someone else who's a genius at what you suck at should be a telltale sign that that's not the thing to go focus on, right? Rather to bring somebody else in. And so as I began to lean into that, I recognized that my wife was the perfect complement for me. So she became the second member of my team. And then we went from there. We started to build it out and grow it. And life has never been the same. Now, obviously, we had a little bit of a hiccup with COVID, but we were able to get right back on track because of what I'll be showing you guys today. So I think the first thing to start with would probably be to take another look at the Wealth Dynamics Square. This is something we've talked about before to Karen's audience, but if you weren't around last year, let's just do that again. And I'm going to share my screen real quick. And just let me know if you can see my slides and not all of the Zoom stuff that's on top of it. Can you see that?
Yes, we see the slides. Thank you.
All All right, cool. So you'll see here that there's, this kind of square, and it's split up into 4 different parts. Now, wealth dynamics is basically taken from 2 different things. The work that Carl Jung did, which is the personality profiles. If you've ever taken DISC or Myers-Briggs, actually go ahead and tell me in the chat if you've taken DISC or Myers-Briggs, what's your profile, right? Are you a D, an I, ENTJ? Like what is your profile type in those systems? All of those are based off of Carl Jung's work, which really distills down to these 4 primary personality types. And Carl Jung wrote the foreword to the first English translation of a 3,000-year-old Chinese text called the I Ching, one of the oldest spiritual texts on the planet. And the I Ching is what Chinese medicine uses to really understand, okay, there's actually these different elements and different seasons at play. So the upshot of this is you're a human being, and as a human being, you're part of nature, and there's a natural order to the way that we think and act. There's a natural flow, and there's a natural sequence and unfolding to the way that business and the economy works. But if you don't know any of that, it all looks like chaos. It all looks confusing. It's all like, what do I do? When do I do it? And you're just copying other people or throwing spaghetti, trying to see what sticks. So I'm seeing some introverts here, some extroverts, right? Some of you have taken Enneagram. Enneagram is based off a different system, but when you take that, the I Ching and Carl Jung's work, and you put them together, this is what wealth dynamics is. And it was created by one of my mentors, Roger Hamilton, back in like 2004, I think, something like this. Anyway, so here's what it looks like. If you take a look at the square, you'll notice that at the top, it has this green triangle, and at the bottom, it has this yellow one. What this is talking about is the way that we think. And so people that maybe think a little bit more intuitively, they're inventors. They come up with stuff. That's your Elon Musk, right? That's your Mark Zuckerberg. On the right up there, we have Beyonce Knowles, who she's creative, right? She's creating things, creating music, right? Creating sets and dances. Whereas at the bottom here, you have people that you may not recognize as much, like Warren Buffett. Well, these people are more about being what we call tempo, or they're more about the timing, and they have a sensory awareness. So they're showing up kind of in the here and the now, and they're, Warren Buffett buys companies. He doesn't start companies, right? And so understanding that those are 2 completely different ways to approach building wealth or creating value, we begin to recognize that if we're trying to follow the Warren Buffett path and the Elon Musk path at the same time, we're like Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde, right? We're going in 2 different directions. We're spreading ourselves thin, and we're not going to be as effective. So what we do in wealth dynamics is we figure out, well, what are these 8 different types? And then which path feels like the best one for you? We have a test that can help you kind of narrow it down, but ultimately you decide. Right. And so for me, I discovered that I was a wealth dynamics creator. However, as a wealth dynamics creator, if I want to make some money this week, I'm not going to go spend $44 billion buying Twitter. That's his job. Right. So we're at different levels as creators. Right. So there's me, there's Karen, there's my broke brother-in-law, there's, Elon Musk. Everybody might be a creator, but they're at different levels. And so that's really what I want to be getting into today, because even if you follow the right path, if you copy someone's actions that are the same as yours, like they're the same profile as you, but you do it at the wrong time, the right thing at the wrong time is still the wrong thing. All right. And so we really want to kind of dive into that wealth spectrum. And, as Karen mentioned, we have a workshop and some stuff coming up in a couple of weeks where I actually will spend almost an hour just on this part right here, wealth dynamics. But I wanted to kind of give you an idea what this whole thing's based off of, which is that there's different ways of thinking, there's different ways of acting, and based off of your personality, you're going to find a lot of flow in your zone of genius, and you're going to find a lot of grind when you try and do the wrong things. Make sense? Any questions or anything you would like to point out on this before we dive into the spectrum, Karen?
Yeah, and I was going to just mention that because this Zoom webinar has a Q&A, that if you have a question for Trey specific to your whatever is going on with you and your business or whatever, you can post that in the Q&A and we'll address those later. And some people are asking about where can they find the quiz. We actually have 2 options. One is kind of like a freebie that you've created called the Flow Quiz, where you have an idea whether you're Dynamo, Blaze, Tempo, or Steel, so you have an idea. And then of course the actual quiz where you get all the detailed, however many 25 pages or 35 pages of information about your specific profile and to what degree are you the other profiles. There was a cost to that, but there is a way in which we can get a really good deal on that. So I think you're going to talk about that later, and I have a pretty link to that. So there's 2 ways. So for whatever reason you don't want to join us in 2 weeks for the workshop, we have the free quiz. At least you can get an idea of where you're at, so you have an idea what your genius is.
100%.
Yeah, I don't think I have any other questions now, but I can intuit questions coming up in the future, which we'll ask later.
Okay, cool. All right, so let's go ahead and dive in then to the wealth spectrum. So I discovered my Wealth Dynamics profile back in 2017 at Burning Man. Within a year, I was starting to find flow as a creator, but I wanted to start a new business. I wanted something that could give me the lifestyle freedom. So many of you in here are like, I don't have a business I love. I can't figure out what business I want to create. I'm in a job. I want to start a business. I've done all of those. Like, I'm the poster child for having tried everything. And so I went from having a high six-figure job to zero and then having to start up something new. And I've done that multiple times. This last time though, I did it using the wealth spectrum. And that's what allowed us to get into flow. And then we got out of flow in COVID to get back in flow. And so the upshot of this is to understand that there are multiple levels of wealth. But before I go into that, this is a very important point. What is wealth? Go ahead and throw in the chat what you think that word means. What is wealth? What do you guys think wealth is?
I know the answer to that, so I'm not going to post.
Yeah. No students get to answer. Leslie and Dr. Karen.
Put in the chat. What is wealth, guys?
Jantara says leftover money. I'm seeing freedom. Health of all. I like that actually. Wealth is having enough of what you want to live the way you want. Abundance in all areas of life, abundance of resources, love. I love all of these answers. So there's a lot of ways of looking at what is money, what is wealth. And in my workshop, we go into this as well. But this phrase changed everything for me. And it's changed the way that I look at business. And it allowed me to actually start getting compound growth. And it's this. And if you're a note taker, I'd write this one down. Wealth is what's left over after the money goes away. Wealth is what's left over after the money goes away. If you really think about what that means, you go out there, you produce a service, you sell a product, you solve a problem, and someone pays you for that. And then you take that money and you buy your kids some food and you buy yourself a car and you live your life, and that money's gone. Once the money's gone, what's left? If there's nothing left, then where's the wealth? If you take somebody who wins the lottery, make $3 million, they lose it all within a few years. They spend it all, they buy a bunch of stuff, and they're back in the hole. But if you took someone like, Richard Branson and took away all of his billions, he'd be right back up on top in just a few years because he has something else. So wealth is what we're actually trying to build, right? Wealth is the ability to produce cash. Wealth is the ability to connect with people. It's the people that you know. It's the relationships that you have. It's the products that you have built that you could sell again, right? It's the lead magnets that Karen Can has on her website that you can go in and end up on her email list. That's an asset. That's wealth, right? It's a piece of property that produces income for you. There's so many different ways of producing wealth. But if we focus on the money, or what we normally consider as wealth, rather than the other side of it, then we're missing the big picture. And so understanding this, there are 9 different levels of wealth. And depending on your current level of wealth, you're going to be experiencing very different emotions, right? We all know what the emotion is of zero wealth, right? Or worse than zero wealth, negative wealth, right? If you have no money, in fact, you owe money every single month and you owe more than you're bringing in and you have no assets, the emotion of that is, right? You're going to be freaking out. And so let's talk about what these 9 levels look like. So this right here is what we call the Wealth Lighthouse. Let me just close this out so I make sure I can see. Okay. Now the Wealth Lighthouse, if you look at the bottom, you'll notice it has 4 squares. So this is the reason why we usually start the conversation with that wealth dynamics piece, is because those 4 squares represent, there's 4 different sides of the lighthouse. You can be looking out the more dynamo side like me and Karen, or you can be looking out the more tempo side like Leslie, or the more blaze side like Grace. And so these 4 different sides of this crystal clear lighthouse, if you will, they look at a different season of the business, right? And so you have the beginning season of the business, which is more the creative side. You have then the summer of the business, which is taking it out to the market and making sales. You have the fall of the business, which is delivering or sending your products to people. And then you have the winter season of the lighthouse, which is taking care of the systems and the numbers. How many of you in here are probably really great at the product and the sales, but you suck at the systems and the numbers? If you can say, yeah, that's me, I admit it, you can put that in the chat, right? But the reality is you can't go up the Wealth Lighthouse unless you go through all 4 seasons. So that's why those 4 are down there. So the first thing you'll notice is the 4 squares. The next thing you'll notice is that the bottom floor is actually a basement. It's beneath the surface. So this is actually what we call the infrared level, or the victim. So this is someone who is going backwards in their cash flow. They're spending more than they're making, right? So every single month. And when you're in that position, all you can see is red. Like life is scary. Right. This is what happened to us in COVID. It didn't matter that I had, months worth of cash in the bank. when every day that number was going down with no new sales, I started to get a little bit manic. Like, oh my gosh, we've got to figure something out, and we've got to figure it out quick, right? Or if your bank account's at zero and you know that you've got rent due on Monday, you start freaking out. So that negative energy that happens in that infrared spot can cause you to kind of spiral. And that spiraling keeps you from being able to get out of there, which is why it's so important to understand that it's a temporary place and that there are specific steps that you can take to go from infrared to this next level, which is red. So we call the infrared the victim because you're a victim of a situation, right? Not necessarily you're running around saying I'm a victim. Like I wasn't running around telling people that my cash flow was negative, but I knew it was. And so I felt it. And I was a victim of this situation called COVID. Yet I saw a lot of other people that were spending all of their time railing at the state, getting angry about, the fact that their business got shut down. And I felt for them, but I was also like, how are you paying the bills while you're at the Capitol yelling? Like, gets things in the right order. Like, let's get the business back on track first. So anyway, you got to move into this red level, the survivor. So what is the survivor? Well, the survivor is what it sounds like. It's a person who's no longer a victim. They have survived it, but they're just breaking even. So this is where you're making enough money to pay the bills, but not enough to have anything left over to be able to enjoy anything, to go anywhere, to do anything. And so that red level can also be very frustrating. It's relieving at first because you're no longer negative, but you kind of feel like you're spinning your wheels. Who here's ever traded time for money? You can put it in the chat. Have you ever had a job, just over broke? They call it a job for a reason, right? That idea of being red and just making ends meet is what most people associate with a job. But that's not necessarily true. You can earn more than just a living by having a job. If you have a skill, if you have a marketable skill that people want to buy from you, then they'll pay you more than minimum wage, right? So a lot of people want minimum wage to go up. Well, maybe you can rail at the state to get that to happen, or you can just go get a skill and your minimum wage will go up. So let's focus on where we can actually get on the court and make something happen for ourselves immediately before we try and, get everybody else's stuff to change. And so now we get up to that red level and we say, okay, I want to go to the next level. I want to become a worker. Now, a worker is someone who puts in the extra time. They put in the extra effort. They develop a certain skill, right? So many of you on here are self-employed, right? You couldn't be self-employed if you were just trading your time. Right? If you're self-employed, that means you have some sort of skill, something that you create, something that you serve, and you do that in such a way that people are willing to pay you more than the minimum wage in order for you to do that. And with that skill, you become, again, what's called the worker. Now, the worker has a challenge too. They have no time, right? Because you're spending so much time not just delivering your service or your product, but also coming up with a better product or getting better at your service, doing training and getting a better skill. And you're very limited because typically at that orange level, there's like a very small group of people, usually one person, your boss, who's actually paying you for that skill, right? Maybe you're a freelance, you've got like a handful of clients, but really you're just a commodity, right? If people ask you what you do, if you answer the question with the type of service you have, then we know you're orange. So if I say, what do? You say, I'm a massage therapist. Then I say, oh, okay, you're probably orange. But you can move from orange into what's called yellow, which is a quantum leap, because you'll notice if you look really closely here, that after the third level, there's a double line. So that means we're actually moving from one prism to the next prism. So that center prism is what we call the Enterprise Prism. The first three is foundation. It's just about you. Can you get your cash flow, right? Can you get a skill that you can market, that you can make money from and have money left over every single month, right? So that you can afford to go to Disneyland once a year, or you can afford to, buy organic food, or pay your taxes, right? So being able to kind of get past orange is a quantum leap. So it's a big mindset shift to go from a worker to a player. Because a worker gets their value from their hard work, whereas a player gets their value by thinking smart, gets their value through their identity. And so instead of being, oh, I'm a massage therapist, instead you are, hey, you know how busy working people can get really stressed out and spend all day in seats? Well, I actually help six-figure entrepreneurs be able to relieve stress on a weekly basis so they can get more done in their jobs. Oh, okay, I understand what you're doing. You have an identity. You have a certain person that you're working with. And so just the change in the phraseology, I begin to notice, okay, this person has got an idea of who their market is and where they are, right? They're not just serving whoever, whenever. They've actually found a way to really focus. And so that yellow level is fun because this is the land of six figures, multi six figures. This is where you can have a service-based business, no matter what industry you're in, that allows you to impact an even larger scale of people. And this is where you start to bring in team. So it's no longer just about you. Now you're bringing other people in, maybe just like a virtual assistant, maybe some part-time contractors, not necessarily a robust team with a lot of systems and stuff like this, right? But you are bringing enough people. Think of this like, you're a one-man band, right? And you're playing the music, but you got someone, checking the door and getting people's tickets, someone taking drinks, there's someone hooking up the sound. So you have some assistants, but you are the show, right? And people are coming to see you. And so that yellow level can be so amazing. It could be like, you see those people sipping Mai Tais in Bali, running their business from a laptop, they're at yellow level, right? But there's a limitation at yellow, which is that's as high as you can go on your own, meaning you're going to have to bring other people in. And if you want to sell your business, you can't do it at yellow. Now, as my dad unfortunately found out with his auto shop, like no one wanted to buy the auto shop when the auto shop was basically him in a building, right? You take him out of it and it's just the building. They didn't want to pay for a business. They just wanted to pay for the building. And so you begin to recognize yellow has its limitations too. Being a player has its limitations too, because if you step off the stage, the music stops playing. And so now we go to the green level, the performer. Now the performer is like one member of the band. Actually, it's the drummer, because you're keeping the rhythm. You're the one making sure that all the rest of the music is playing, that it's, playing at the right time, right? And so you're keeping that rhythm. But if you stopped playing for a second, the music could still play without you. And so if you can't leave your business for 2 months, 3 months and come back and more money was made while you were gone, right, than would have been made if you'd stayed, then you're still not at green level yet. So that green level is, it doesn't need me in order for the business to be able to run. My teams are actually doing it. And so at this level, you don't just hire contractors, you have full-time leadership team, you have full-time people that are helping you. And this is the land of $1 million plus, 7 figures, right? Is having those systems and those teams and those operations in place. And the freedom that it gives you is this freedom to be able to hire the best people. The freedom that it costs you is you have to show up for those people. At the yellow level, there's a little more lifestyle freedom, where it's just like I can come and go as I please, but there's not as much money. And so we begin to recognize that this isn't like you have to climb, it's a choice, right? Now, I wouldn't recommend infrared, and red ain't a whole lot of fun either, but it's your choice. Do you want to be orange, yellow, green, or above, right? And so that green level is a great place to start to think, all right, I've got enough systems and team here. Maybe I could start another business. And this is the key. So many people, myself included, they're like, oh, I got 3 businesses. I got 5 businesses. And I'm like, okay, how many employees do you have? And they're like, just me. And I'm like, you don't have 5 businesses if you have 1 employee and it's you, right? You just have 5 jobs and 5 distractions. In reality, it's not until you can have a business that runs on its own that you should even consider running a second business. Just that one piece of information there would have saved me so much time and so many years, because, I was really giving partial effort to multiple things instead of all of my effort to one. And so you get to that green level, and now blue is available. Now, blue is when you do on multiple businesses. It's when you can step away from one and you can start another one. It's when you can take one, maybe even and sell it, right? So now you're blue level, and it's your portfolio, your investments, your money that's actually paying for you. So as you can see here, the wealth is increasing at each level. At the first level, we don't have any wealth. At the second level, we're just trading our time for money. At the third level, our wealth is our skill. At the fourth level, our wealth is our identity. At the fifth level, our wealth is our team. So we're starting to develop more team and assets and systems. And now we actually have an asset portfolio. At blue level, these are the people that are multimillionaires. They're living off of selling a company, or their business runs so well that they check in once a month. They're just not even necessarily involved in the day-to-day of that business. And this is the top of the second prism, or what we call the Enterprise Prism, right? Which is really where all the money is, where all the businesses are. Everybody that that owns a business, it's not like a major multinational corporation. They're in one of those 3 levels, right? So we get to the top of that blue. Now, blue has some downsides to it, right? The main downside of blue is loss of passion. You're not involved in the day-to-day anymore. So you're kind of like, well, what do I do? Right. And so I have some blue clients that are like, what do I do next? Like, I'm trying to find my next purpose, my next passion. Well, some people don't sell the business at blue. Some people decide to take it to a whole other level, into the alchemy prism. So again, you'll notice a double line here. So we're going into the top 3 levels of wealth now, which is actually far beyond business. The alchemy prism begins with, you can take a company public, right? This is what we call the trustee. Right? If the blue level is the conductor, right? So I didn't cover that, but that's the guy that actually makes sure the music is being played at the right tempo, right? They're not facing the audience at all. They're just facing the team. They're not even getting involved in the business. If that's the conductor, the trustee is the person who raises the money so that the symphony can play, because it sure as hell isn't going to be able to play based just off of sales of the tickets for you to go, watch the Nutcracker. So that trustee is raising the money. Right. So think Elon Musk, right? He's out there and he's like, hey, I'm going to raise $44 billion to buy Twitter. I'm going to raise $100 million to invest in starting Solar City. So he's out there and he's able to, on an announcement, raise millions and millions and millions and millions of dollars, because he has so much trust in the market. In fact, if you notice each of these levels, you're garnering more trust. trust in your ability to show up, trust in your ability to have a skill, trust in your identity, trust in your team, right? Trust in your portfolio. So there's more and more trust at each level. This is the level where you can take companies public. Beyond that, when you go up to the composer, these people write the music. They write the rules, right? Well, a lot of us think that, well, what are the rules? I need to, abide by the rules. Other people think, what are the rules? I want to break the rules. Composers think, what are the rules? I'm going to change the rules. This is where you can actually go to the state and make things different, right? And so my friends that fall into infrared and they want to try and change things are going to have a hard time doing it. Whereas somebody like Bill Gates or somebody like Elon Musk or somebody, Richard Branson's probably the best example of all, who he was able to actually go lobby the British government to create entrepreneurship funds so that young people who wanted to go into business would have capital to be able to do that. He was able to do that because he's a 70-year-old man that's already matured and graduated out of the trustee level. And now he's a composer, right? And so he's able to make that impact and create movements, right? Which is pretty beautiful. It's not even necessarily business anymore, right? These are the people that are, able to actually create change. But then lastly, at the very top of the Wealth Lighthouse, these are the people that have ascended beyond all of it, where they're icons. We call them legends for a reason, like a legend on a map. They give us an idea of where we're going. And so you might think of somebody like Steve Jobs, right? When someone says this person is the Steve Jobs of that industry, Steve Jobs must be a pretty powerful person if he's being used as a legend to be able to define what a person is. Mother Teresa, Mahatma Gandhi, right? Nelson Mandela, people that have made movements, Martin Luther King Jr., and changes in the world, they're at that legend level. And so you choose. Do you want to spend your life going all the way up to legend? Is that what you want? Or do you just want to be at yellow level and be able to have cash flow and live on the beach? Or do you want to be at blue level and you're, retired and your money takes care of you and you watch your grandkids play? You get to decide where you want to be. But instead of this being about dollars, I didn't really mention much about dollars here. Instead of this being about, trying to improve yourself against other people, it's about advancement for yourself and your own sake. And where do you want to go and what wealth do you want to create? And so to kind of finish this and give you perspective, when Grace and I started ACE, we started at zero, right? So that would be infrared because I'm paying for things before I'm making money. And we moved that business up to yellow level where we were running workshops and we were making money and we were putting things on. In fact, we were starting to build team and squeak into green level when COVID happened. What level do you think we dropped to when COVID happened? Infrared. We went overnight all the way down to infrared. And so in the past, I would have kept trying to take yellow level action or even green level action to get myself out of that hole. But instead, recognizing I was an infrared, I took red level action. I said, what is it going to take for me just to survive? How can I go provide value right now so that we can be able to get to even cash flow? And so that meant that I had to actually eat some humble pie and do some of the work that I told myself, oh, I'm past that, right? I can't tell you how many times I talk to an entrepreneur and they're struggling and I look at what they're doing and I'm like, why don't you do that? And they're like, well, I don't do that anymore. And I'm like, well, that's why you're struggling. Sometimes you need to downshift. And other times you can upshift, right? Each of these is like a gear in your car. There's only so fast you can go in a certain gear, but there's also only so slow you can go. And so sometimes you need to kind of downshift. And so that's what we did in COVID. We downshift all the way to red, and then we got our way back to orange and back to yellow and now to green. And it took us, 2 years to get to green again, but it didn't take us long to get back to surviving. And so that's really what matters here, is that there is a plan and there is a map. And each of these steps actually have 3 steps within them. And then those 3 steps have a whole bunch of checklists and stuff like that. So I'm able to apply this to any industry. And that's why we're able to help so many people every year be able to climb the Wealth Lighthouse, whether it's just going from, red to yellow, or it's going from yellow to blue. Whatever your ultimate goal is, 1, 2, 3 steps. One thing to remember, you can't skip any. It's one at a time. All right.
Oh, all right. Yeah, that's huge. That was awesome. It's great hearing this again, Trey. I could probably hear this over and over and over again. And every time, I think Leslie's probably feeling the same way, right? You get it just a little bit more like a diamond, like a gem, like, oh yeah, that's right, And so, the different prisms. And what I love about this is, like you said, it's not about the money, and it's a choice. So, there's a lot of us who, in the dreamer world go, well, a lot of us are, in my tribe, highly sensitive. We were in kind of that healer space, and we just say, okay, abundance, we want abundance. And we want to download energies of abundance and remove money blocks and, all this kind of stuff. And at the same time, when what you're talking about is very grounded in, hey, there's a path, to get there. So when I'm looking at, the conductor level or the trustee level thing, I'm just like, it's like, I don't know, not really feeling it, at this point. I think that so many of us aren't grounded, or in the past, I wasn't grounded. I just think, well, a bag of money is just going to fall into my lap somehow, or I'm just going to be so good at being such an amazing healer, that I'm going to be a multi-millionaire, but I had no idea what that actually means, like in a business. And what you're saying is, hey, when you get to that green level, when you're getting that, going towards that level, you need team. And there's so many people that I know who are like healers and in this industry that are like, they don't ask for help. Like they have no idea what to do, or even who to ask, and that they want to push it and reject it. And it's like, somehow we think that we're going to get to multi-million-dollar, even billion-dollar level with no team. And now I just realized how ridiculous that is. So thank you for setting me straight on that.
Well, and I think one of the really important things here is you don't have to do it all right now, right? And so I think there's a tendency to get overwhelmed if we go watch webinars and we go see like people are pitching this strategy or that tactic or this thing, and you're like, oh my God, it's so many things. You don't actually have to do it all right now. In fact, if you feel guilty because you're not doing accounting and bookkeeping and you don't have like all of your profit and loss statements and stuff like this, let me just let you off the hook. If you're under like blue level, you really don't need even all three of the main accounting sheets, right? So normally when you're doing accounting, you have your statements of cash flow, you have your profit and loss, and you have your assets, right? You don't really need to be looking at assets till you're at blue level. So everybody's like worried about net worth when they're at orange level. Don't even worry about net worth. Invest in your identity, right? Cash flow is what really matters. And so a lot of people get overwhelmed with trying to do too many things. Each of these steps says there's only certain things you need to do right now. And a lot of people also will distract themselves by going out and trying to copy what people at yellow level or green level are doing successfully. Like, I'm infrared, I have an idea, let me start a podcast, right? And it's like the tail on that podcast creating value enough that it's going to create clients and customers for you. You will starve long before that ever produces a customer. And then you get frustrated because you're like, well, I have more value than that person. I have a better skill than that person. I'm smarter, younger, better looking, whatever, right? Older, whatever's important to you. And you're like, why am I not getting the results? And it's like, well, because you haven't actually built trust at the levels beneath you. So another thing to consider here, you may recognize these colors, right? These are the same colors as the chakra system, right? Until you've taken care of survival, you're not going to be able to drive with willpower, right? And as much as we all want to like go build a team and everybody's equal and we all love each other and we want to come from the green heart chakra, right? If you don't actually have things within integrity beneath that, it's going to be really wonky and wobbly and things might fall apart. And so each of these, just like Maslow's hierarchy of needs, they stack on top of each other. And so the fastest way to get there is actually to slow down.
Wow. Yeah, that was huge for me as well, because in the past, let's just say, I kind of took it personally when I, wanted someone to come onto my podcast, or I wanted to be on their podcast, or I wanted to give value to them. And I knew that my skill set was better than who they had already hired, or I could make it better. But it was like they either ignored me, just said no. T.R. Becker's, son said, well, how many downloads do you have? We need at least 50,000, downloads, for your podcast. And I was like, I have no idea. Right. And they said, when they were very nice about it, they said, well, just let us know, when that happens, and let's talk about it later. And so now that I didn't take personally at this point, I understand what was going on, but now I'm getting it on my end where I have to say no, because there's only so much time in the day. And it sounds like mean, Trey, like on the outside, we're like, well, why do I need a mailing list? Shouldn't you support me? Because I'm a healer too, like you are. Like, why can't I be on your podcast, or vice versa? Right now I realize, oh, wow. Okay. They're about impact. They want to know for their time, the biggest impact. And I don't have a big enough mailing list. Why should they have me on their podcast? Right? Because it's going to reach 50 people as opposed to 500,000 people.
And if you don't have the map, that'll frustrate you, because you're like, that's not fair. It's like, right. Okay, you can be upset and you can say that's not fair, but which of those colors does that sound like? It sounds like the victim to me. Okay, well then what do I need to be to get on the podcast? Well, first I need to survive and I need to work. And then once I'm a player, people want to play with me. Okay, so what do I need to do? Okay, so you're saying I need to go build an email list. Okay, well, how do I go do that? And so there's steps to be able to do that. And most people, because they don't see the steps, they become frustrated and become overwhelmed. But the steps are actually pretty simple. We call it the spiral staircase. So when you're inside of the lighthouse, you're taking a spiral staircase up the lighthouse. You're going from, again, spring, summer, fall, winter, spring, summer, fall, winter. And how fast you do that, yeah, you can hustle, right? But you can't skip a step, right? When you're trying to go up the stairs, you can't be like, oh, I'm going to skip a floor. I'm going to go straight from floor 1 to floor 3. Like there's no elevator in here, right? So we have to go step by step by step in order to make it happen.
Yeah, that's very, very cool. Makes a lot of sense. And yeah, I definitely was wanting to go from infrared to, pretty much yellow overnight. That wasn't going to happen. Thankfully, my husband didn't listen to me when I was telling him what he should do for his business. Because I had great ideas, of course, because I'm a creator, but he was just like, he didn't want to do it. He just wasn't in the mindset to do it. One of the questions that comes up, Trey, and I think, and for folks, if you want to put in Q&A, we're going to be talking about in a few minutes, what you can do to learn more. But if you have a question for Trey about your personal stuff, there's some stuff in the chat as well that Trey can take a look at, see if he wants to address. What I realize is that, as I'm going through these different steps, that there is always a fear. Well, I shouldn't say always. Let me cancel. Okay. There was a fear that at every level, I have to bust my butt, excuse the language, and hustle. So can you tell us about that? Because I can feel their fear. There's some fear around, oh my God, there's so much to do. I'm going to have to bust my butt through all of this just to get to yellow. Like, can you give us a little bit of counseling on that piece?
Yeah. So I'm called the flow coach sometimes. That's a name that I was given by a friend / client / mentor about 2 years ago. And the reason he called me that was because my whole thing is, if it's a grind, that's a signal that you're in between gears, right? Like think about a car. Like if you're grinding, don't stay there. If you keep grinding, you're going to burn out, right? And that's why a lot of people end up probably coming to you. They're burned out from their career, burned out from their life, burned out from their chronic illness. And a lot of that is downstream result of grinding. So I always draw a distinction between hustle and grind, right? Hustle is, we have these bodies, we have this spirit, we have this energy that wants to be used. And so we exercise our bodies, and so we dance, and so we move. And so if there's work that you enjoy doing, whether it's writing or speaking or helping people or serving or massaging people, you want to be able to show up and use that energy because that's your life force. So I don't make hustle wrong. Right? Hustle is when you're showing up, doing the stuff that you really want to do because it's getting you the results that you want, because it's making a change in the world. Grind is when you keep doing that, even when you start having to sacrifice your health, time with your family, your sanity, your mental health, right? When things start really breaking down, that's the grind. And so what I always say is, you want to hustle, but if you're experiencing grind, stop, back up, and heal. And so it's actually as much about healing yourself to be able to get to the next level than it is about any sort of marketing thing that you do or sales thing that you do. Because if you're not healing the inner world, if you're not taking a look at the inside and what are the thoughts and the feelings, what are the emotions that are driving what I'm doing, then chances are you'll end up like I was at yellow level, making 6 figures and with chronic illness, right? Stressed out, unhappy, unfulfilled. Success without fulfillment, that's no fun either. And so while I can help anybody go up the lighthouse, I can only help you do it if you love what you do, right? And that may mean in the short term, making a sacrifice and saying, okay, well, what I would really love to do in my ideal fantasy looks like this, but Trey's telling me that's step 5. And so I got to start right now with this, which, maybe it isn't exactly my fantasy of exactly what I would like to look like, but if it moves me forward, that's the most I can ask. And then I can move forward from there. And then I can move forward from there. And so that's why I said the fastest way is slowly, is because if you just take the baby steps and take the next step and do the thing that's right in front of you, right, then it'll start to work. But the biggest challenge that people have is not admitting what level they're at and trying to play at the wrong one, right? If you're like, oh, I'm yellow. And it's like, okay, well, let's see your cash flow. And you're like, well, I don't want to show you my cash flow. I'm like, okay, you're not yellow. Let's just play orange for like 60 days. It may not even necessarily be that long of a time. When you're lower down the lighthouse, like you can get up a level. I can get you from infrared to red in like a week. You can get from red to orange probably inside of, a few months. You can get from orange to yellow probably take you a couple quarters or half a year, or maybe even a year if you've never done it before, and as you go up, it takes longer and longer, but you have more resources as you go up, right? And you have more tools and more freedom. And so, yes, sometimes hustle is required. I'm not going to say it's not, but I will also say, just as with the chakras, like you're going to be a lot of willpower at yellow, right? But at red, it's mostly about leadership. It's about being able to move your team around and be able to help that flow. But you don't have to jump straight into that. You don't have to get in over your head. You can just start with where you are and take whatever step is right in front of you. And if you find yourself resisting whatever needs to be done, take a look at healing, right? Why am I in this situation? Is there something about me that I'm feeling compelled to do something because I haven't healed some trauma from my childhood and so I'm not at choice? Or am I in the wrong business? And I just don't actually want to be doing this. And I did it for the money, or I did it for convenience, or I did it out of desperation. And it's time for me to step back, take a look at it and go, you know what? I'd rather start over right now and do something I love than keep pushing this thing up a mountain when it's the wrong mountain.
Yeah, that's really good counsel right there. There's a lot of people that lost their jobs or are almost going to lose their jobs because of the, COVID and whatever's going around. And some of them have decided, I so don't want to go back to a job. So what if someone is in infrared or is in red, but they're like, I hate this job. I know you're going to address some of that in the flow workshop, right? And we can talk about that now.
Yeah, we'll get into that in more detail there. But the short answer is, if you're an infrared, please do not start a business. Right? if you're on a boat and that boat is sinking and it's got holes in it, right? Now's not the time to build a boat. Right? There's not enough time for you to do that. And so it's like, okay, swim to shore or find another boat that you can swim to and get on that boat. And so getting another job might actually be exactly what you need to do. But the entrepreneur doesn't get a job. The entrepreneur creates a job. The entrepreneur looks for where do they actually want to be in the marketplace? Who do they want to serve? What industry do they want to be part of? Who are the people that are already doing what they want to do, who have a yellow level business or a green level business? And then how can you contribute your heart? How can you contribute your soul, your time, your skill in such a way that helps them actually create even more value than the value that you're producing and that you're giving to them? And so my advice in a phrase is, don't get a job, create a job, and then find ways for that job to actually be a stepping stone into a business, right? And that is actually how we started ACE. When we found Wealth Dynamics, I said, oh, this is really amazing. I want to leave my speaking career, but if I leave, I can't stay because I'll be competing with them. So I have to leave. Now I don't have a non-compete, I have a non-solicit. Like I can't go sell to any of those people, but I could compete. And so I needed to do something different. And so I actually hit up the guy that created Wealth Dynamics. And I was like, I flew out to Asia because that's where they are. And I was like, hey, let me bring your work to the United States. Right. And by the way, you don't have to pay me anything to do it. Right. I'm going to do it in this way. And so I created for myself a position that didn't have to pay me at first. Right. And then I was able to negotiate once I showed trust. Then I was able to say, okay, well, if you'd like me to put on all of your events, pay me. And so I created a job for myself. Right. And so there are ways of doing this. Right now, I was able to do that because I had a couple months of bills on hand. If I didn't have that, well, then I would have to get a job. And while I have the job, start doing that stuff in my nighttime. So a lot of that hustle and grind stuff that you see on social media, where everybody's like, you just got to like just sweat it out to your eyes bleed, like all that stuff. That's meant for people that are at that like infrared red level. It's trying to encourage them to actually get the willpower to get out and do something. The problem is when that's the only thing you know and you keep doing it long after you're out of infrared and you're still showing up with this hustle and grind all the time because that's what got you here. The reality is what got you here won't get you there. And so sometimes it's time to let go of what we've done in the past and move on to something new.
That's great. Well, we kind of created a job for Leslie, right, Leslie? Yeah.
I didn't want to use her as an example myself, but since you did, Leslie, we went to one of our workshops. We had this conversation. It's exactly what she did.
Yeah. No, that's great. And I am the beneficiary of that wisdom, which is awesome. Okay. Well, so 19th, we have the official Flow Accelerator workshop. Can you tell us about, what people are going to learn there, what they're going to get, the benefits? And sure. I did put a link in the chat.
Awesome. So when I first discovered the Wealth Dynamics system, it took me a year before I even learned about the Wealth Lighthouse. Once I learned about the Wealth Lighthouse, it took me a year before I was able to really start making it work. It was another year when COVID happened, right? And so now it's been like 5 years of working with these systems. So what we've done over this time is not only been able to move ourselves up, down, and back up the Wealth Lighthouse, but also help other people do the same thing. And so we have programs that we help people do that with. I mentor entrepreneurs, but not everybody can afford that or is ready for that. And you kind of need to understand these systems before you do anything else. And so what we did is we took my 4-year learning curve and crushed it into 4 hours. And so basically you can come out on the 19th of May. I believe it is at noon Eastern. And we'll actually spend about 4 hours together. And it's a workshop. So unlike this, cameras are going to be on. So put your Zoom face on before you get there. We're going to be connecting. You're going to be talking to other people, and you're going to dive deeper into this learning. And I make it kinesthetic, right? We play games because I really want you to get this. And we're going to go through wealth dynamics first. We're also going to get into the wealth spectrum. And then I'm going to show you a tool that I use to be able to break through any block that I have if I'm trying to make a decision around my business. So we're going to go through basically everything that I learned across those 4 years as not only a user, but also a practitioner and a coach of wealth dynamics and wealth spectrum inside of that flow workshop, so that you can walk away with a plan for what do I do next? What are my next steps based off of where I'm at and who I am? Who are my ideal team members? Who should I bring onto my team? What is the next stage of business for me? And then if you're one of the lucky people that I actually am going to pull up on stage and we talk to, then we may even break through some of the blocks that you have. And you'll have a chance to ask questions and get them answered and everything while you're there as well. Now, the flow workshop is, a culmination of years of my life. And I wanted to make sure that I priced it, high enough that people would respect it, show up, turn their camera on, be ready to go, but also low enough that anybody can make it happen. And so you can actually come out to the Flow workshop for only $270. That's, for me, the perfect price. But I started talking to Karen and she was like, can we do an even better deal for my audience if we invite them all at the same time? And I said, okay, here's what we can do. If you want to go take the wealth dynamics test, don't even come to the workshop. You just go buy the wealth dynamics test. That's $100. So what I figure is, if you come to my workshop, which comes with the wealth dynamics test, let's just do it for the same price as the test. So instead of paying for the whole workshop, for just the $97 you would normally pay just to take the test, you get the test and the 4-hour workshop. That way, all of you are able to come out, you can learn everything you need to learn, and it didn't cost you a penny more than if you would have just taken the test anyway. So that's kind of my gift to Karen's audience, because so many of you are going to be coming at the same time, just to make it easy for you. I believe Karen said there is a link in the chat. So if you just want to use the link in the chat, you'll be able to do that. We'll know that you came from Karen's audience. So we'll be able to say hello to you and thank you when you get there. And my biggest recommendation is take the test immediately. So you'll get an email right away with a link to go take the test and read the report before you even get there.
Yeah, that's really helpful. Take the test, read the report. You may not understand a lot of it because I took the test years ago and it just sat. It just sat on my desk, and I just knew my team members were an accumulator, what I needed, and that was it. I read through it, but I was like, yeah, out of sight, out of mind. And Trey was the one that reached out to me and said, do you need some help? And I'm like, I don't know. Do I? I don't know. So we met, and after that conversation, I was like, oh man, I needed you like 10 years ago. Geez. And then once you started having these workshops, I was like, yes, because I love workshops. I love it live, honestly, because I don't always portion out the time in my schedule if I'm not accountable to someone. So for me, it really, really helps to be live because I'm accountable. The coach is there. I can do the work. I can ask the question right then and there. And so it's been, truly helpful to have these. And then of course, all the recordings are archived in case I want to go back. I usually take tons of notes. That's just the kind of student I am. So it's been really, really helpful. And thank you so much for the price break on the Flow Accelerator. It's a wonderful program. I loved it. Of course, I'm in the next level too, and I love that. We do have some questions on the Q&A. Should we address a couple of those?
Yeah, so I see one question there twice, which is that I've already taken the test. So you're going to get a free test anyway. I'm not going to withhold it from you just because you've taken it. So take it again if it's been at least a year. Otherwise, give the test to your spouse, your business partner, your friends, somebody you're thinking about hiring. So you can use the test for somebody else. It doesn't have to be for you. But if it's been more than a year and you're like, I don't actually feel sure that I'm this profile and I'd like to try, or you just want to see how it's changed, then you can take it again. I know I was a creator the first time I took it, the second time I took it, the third time I took it, I'm always a creator. But what does change is the percentage of the different elements, which is more than we got into today. But what I found was that by having Grace, my supporter on my team, I actually became even more dynamo than I had been the first time that I took the test. And so I began to say, okay, well, that means I'm going to spend even less time in the other parts of the business and focus really on where I'm going to be most in my flow. So you could take it again if you want. What other questions did we have in here?
I just wanted to mention, I see some more questions about the workshop, but I really want to encourage you. I know a few of you already said that you're coming, like really set aside the time for that day to be really present, cameras on, because we're going to be getting to know each other, asking questions. And by the end of the day, you're going to be a completely different person. You're going to see yourself completely differently, your business completely differently. So I just want to make sure you're present and really able to have fun with us, because we do have a lot of fun too. We play a couple games. Yeah, and there's a question here about, is their workshop offered another day? I would just buy the ticket, because we're offering at this price with Dr. Karen, and email me and I'll get you set up for a different day if you can't make that date.
Yeah, so the next one probably won't be until July, just so you guys know. But if you buy the ticket and you want to come in July, we'll make sure that you get the recording from this one too. That way you can act on the information immediately.
Wow. Okay. Wow. That's great. Thank you so much. Tammy says, I have reserves that I live on until outside business kicks in. So I'm secure. My question is, I still have no new income. So do I still start at the infrared or victim level?
Yes. That's the short answer. The longer answer is what is the fastest thing you can do to go out and build trust in the smallest circle that already trusts you? And then we build out from there. So the challenge that a lot of people run into is they think, but they don't think in time, meaning they're like, oh, I don't want to do this thing because I couldn't do that forever. Well, some things aren't forever. Some things are just to get you to the next stage. And so if your business is a startup, yeah, you would take the infrared red level steps, because those are the steps that are actually going to build the most trust in the market so that you can grow on top of that. The market doesn't care if you have money coming in from investments or alimony or another source of income. The market cares about, can you solve their problem?
Right. Okay, great. Thank you.
I saw a question, is it worth taking the workshop if I haven't actually started a business yet? Only if you want to know which business you should be starting, when you should start it, and how you should start it.
Save you a lot of time.
Yeah.
Right. And there's also a talent dynamics. I know it's not part of this workshop, but there's a different test, correct? So they can email Grace maybe to get a talent dynamics token if they don't want to. I think
if they want to start a business, it would still make sense to do the workshop and take wealth dynamics. But if they decide after that, you know what, I really just want to get a job and I'd like the job to be in my flow as a deal maker, for example, and I'll actually cover that a little bit at the workshop, but there is a different test for that as well. But I cover at the workshop, like, what is each profile? How does each profile show up best in a job? That's important too, because you're going to be bringing people into your team eventually. And you want to know not what is their path to wealth, not with me, but what is their path to productivity on a team? Because some people like to be employees. It's not wrong to want to be part of an organization, right? It's just, are you in flow in that organization? And does the CEO of the company know how to make sure you're in the right seat?
Oh yeah, that's a good point. Bonnie had a question. I'm not sure what the question is, Bonnie. Might need to redo the test because I often feel like a supporter as well as a creator. Okay, offer looks awesome. Is there a replay that would allow me to join late? Join late. I'm not sure what you mean by join late. You mean join, if you could come at 12 noon, that would be ideal, because you don't want to come in like partway through. So
if you do, yeah, if you have something that you're committed to and you just have to come a little late, again, email me. I will give you a special pass. I will let you do that, but just email me so I know, and I know that you're coming and how late, if you're going to be like 20, 30 minutes late, I'm so passionate about sharing this and about you getting the information as soon as possible, because you can just start acting on it right away. So I'd hate for you to have to wait a month or more, or a month and a half, if you're just going to be a little late.
Yeah, you'll definitely get more out of it if you're there the whole time. Pedro, I do see your question, so I'll answer it just real quickly. It depends on your level in business. So his question here is, I'm making it work as a solopreneur. I've got money. I can hire a team, but how do I trust the team? Like, I've got my ideas. I have to work with other people. And the answer is that you let the rope out slowly, right? You're not going to completely just show people everything that you've got going on inside your business when you don't know who the person is and you haven't established trust with them yet. But at some point, if you want to scale, if you want to grow, if you want to be in your zone of genius, you're going to have to learn how to trust. Right. And so there are practical ways of being able to do that, but there's also a whole inner game conversation that you need to be having around, why don't I trust? Right? Why am I so attached maybe to the idea right now? Because what happened, you'll notice when people are at green level, they're not as worried about people stealing their ideas. I had a conversation last night with a multimillionaire, and he's starting a new company and was kind of showing me the structure and asking me my opinion on it. And one of his ideas, I won't give away, but basically he has an idea for software that would compete with a major multi-billion-dollar company. And I was like, oh, that's cool. You'll be able to sell that to this company. He misunderstood me. He's like, well, companies don't buy ideas. And I was like, no, they don't. Right? What they buy is companies. So if you have a great idea, people are worried, or they think like, man, if I had a great idea, I could go sell it to a big company. Big companies don't buy ideas, they buy companies. So you have to not just have an idea, you have to have an idea that you can then take to the market and prove that the market wants your idea and build trust around your ability to deliver on that idea. And then the idea has value. And so that may not answer your question directly because I'm basing it off of just a couple sentences, but in general, you need to build trust in yourself and in your team. And then you'll learn how to trust and you move your way up. I trust my team implicitly. They have access to almost everything, right? But there's certain things that only Grace and I have access to.
That's a great answer. Thank you. Last question. Stephanie says, I was about to launch my business again, and I'm no longer passionate about it. Will this Flow Accelerator help repackage or add or get me to get excited about it again?
I don't know. Maybe it'll get you to shift gears and do something different. Right. So we'll dig in and we'll take a look. Maybe it's the right business, but you're approaching it in the wrong way. And I know we're over time here, but I had this woman at a workshop, the same workshop, 2020 into 21. Her name's Gina. She's a nutritionist, and she was struggling. Like, she was barely making ends meet. She actually was just burning through savings. And she asked me at the workshop, she's like, I'm thinking about giving this up and maybe going and getting a job because I don't know how to be able to do the lead generation. I don't know how to get the sales funnel to work. I don't know how. And I was like, what's your profile? She said, I'm a deal maker. I said, why are you asking the question how? Right? As a deal maker, you should be asking the question who, right? I spent like 10 minutes with her, helping her kind of like figure things out. Within 2 months, she's making $25,000 a month in her business by getting on the phone and directly connecting with people and wasting no time trying to do funnels, because that wasn't the right approach to that business. But she saw somebody else in the same vertical, in the same industry, probably with a different profile, who was doing it a different way. And so even the same industry, same business, same impact can be achieved through completely different pathways. And that's really where Wealth Dynamics comes in to help us align to what's right for us based on our personality.
Yeah, that is fantastic. Thank you so much. So for folks that are listening to the replay, if you go to the link KarenCan.com/Flow Workshop 2022, all one word. So KarenCan.com/Flow Workshop 2022. You'll get that special price that Trey and Grace has gifted us, and you'll get that Wealth Dynamics profile. And I hope to see you on May 19th. And you know what, like I said, I'm totally honest. I mean, I could do this workshop over and over and over again. I like it that much and I will be there. So
we've had some people come that many times.
Yes. And thank you so much, Trey, for gifting us this mini workshop, and Grace as well for being here, and Leslie as a wonderful support. And thanks everyone for listening in. We'll get that replay out. And if anybody wants to listen to it again, and hope to see you, in a couple of weeks.
Awesome. Thanks, Karen.
Thank
All
you.
right. Take care, everyone.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye.
Bye. Enjoy your weekend.